all here.
We're all here.
David, they're all here.
Okay.
Someone missing?
Don't pet them. They
He already
have-
has.
Oh, they
Fleas
have
and
that.
What?
Diarrhea.
Tick.
Oh, well.
A lot of tick.
Look at that.
Okay, everybody. We've got it to ourselves, so let's take about, less than 10 minutes, but more than 5. Because if you go through and see, your eye will tell you what interests you. And if I take you through to show you what interests me, that's all you'll see. So take as much time as you need, but between 5 and 10 minutes to wander through. What's with the camera? No? Camera?
No, I didn't talk to him yet.
Well, talk. Well, go in.
رئيس
Go in and
رئيس
so
فين
Hyla will.
بتاع المقبرة؟
ايوه يا ست منى حضرتك اهو.
طيب ماشي, he's here, I will talk to him. Okay, and then we meet in the first room
Meet in the first
in a
room here,
bit.
or out here.
بقول لك
Okay?
تعال.
If I go with you, you'll all ask me questions, so.
I have a question. Can we take one home?
What? Probably take 8 or 10 of them. Food there.
John, can we start with our questions?
Pardon?
Can I make a question right away?
Yeah, you can.
This is the right altitude? I mean, this used to be covered by something?
Yes, they're pretty good at that sort of thing, of figuring out where it was. I mean, all of behind you, all of that is restoration. The bottom registers are intact, that was found. And they've got enough of it, when they excavated first, there's enough so that they can be pretty sure how high they would have gone. So all of this, there would have been seams here from the bottom registers here all the way to the top. In certain cases, there's enough left over. I mean, there are enough things so that they can probably correctly place them. So sometimes you'll see a wall with just a couple here and 1, 2 there, and so on, because there's a kind of a pattern. In many of the tombs, they start out with, on the exterior, or sorry, on the first, the entry to the tomb will have one of these elaborate scenes, and sometimes many registers, and much more, not more complicated than this, but other aspects of it, on the entrance, and what they're showing you here. So now this is a perfect example of a scene from daily life that's much more than a scene from daily life. You have here, and if you look closely, you see it's all composite, it's all jumbled together. It isn't, what you see is what you get, but it's not necessarily that they're doing all of these things simultaneously in real life. Here you have, this is the papyrus swamp, all of those stalks, like a rainforest. And here you have there are various plants. We'll see more of them inside. That's a bulrush, and with a little frog sitting on the end, and a butterfly at the other end. So all of those will be accurate. Over here, you have guys fishing. You see they've got a big net here where they're catching fish. Down below, this is all underwater. And here you have the various fish. If you really know your fish, you know what each of these fish is. That's a catfish. I don't know what the devil that is.
Tilapia?
Maybe, and with the lotus in between, I just noticed that. I've never noticed that before. But you see all of these other scenes here that are much more than just daily life. This is probably, what you see is what you get. This is a hippo over here. She's actually giving birth to a little baby that is being eaten by a crocodile. And this is, set of cartoon form. Elsewhere we'll see even more dramatic instances of it. The mama hippo is grabbing the crocodile and crushing the crocodile between its gigantic jaws. So this is probably, really is a scene from daily life, but it has a deeper significance, a cosmological and astronomical significance. Elsewhere, I probably pointed out when we were in the tombs at the Valley of the Kings, And there are, you see the hippopotamus in the starry ceiling, standing there with a stick like this, the pregnant hippopotamus, upright with her breasts, standing sort of half human, half hippo, where she represents the principle, cosmic principle of pregnancy, of birth, which is associated with the goddess of pregnancy. And the crocodile, of course, represents death. And you see, I think we did see one, at least one, where the the hippo is standing, Tauret, the crocodile, is standing, and she's got a crocodile on her back. So they represent, in fact, the axis of the created universe, where the crocodile represents fertilization, gestation, and birth, and the...
No, the hippo does.
Sorry, the hippo represents everything associated with birth and maternity, and the crocodile death. And so when they're fused together, they are the principle of becoming and return, and so are placed at the very axis of the universe itself. So here's the counterpart on, as above, so below, literally, as above, so below, and here we see it in action. And I was just saying before how complex these are. There are millions of things that you can spend a lot of time with. If you know your fish, which I don't, you could probably determine why those fish are placed where they are for some reason or another. Over here, interesting, you see here too. But here you see the whole thing. You see these, this has a lot of significance, believe it or not, in terms of development of civilization. You see, this little skiff here, the rowboat, is made of papyrus reeds, but the identical skiff is used in Lake Titicaca by the locals there. So yeah, if you have it, but there it's a different reed, a different kind of reed. But yeah, if you're going to build a little boat of some sort out of reeds, you certainly come up with something maybe similar, but to come up with exactly the same, that's a stretch. So it's hard to avoid the diffusionist point that it's, or better yet, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the one civilization that breaks down, leaving pockets of itself wherever they find, a safe haven and take root, and they carry with them the knowledge that they had much earlier, before. Over here, let's see what you see. Some of the paddles.
Smoked eel right there.
Where is it there? Oh yeah, river eel. Well, sure. Well, it's not that smoky. Okay.
The quality of the art here is kind of like it has a certain quality to it, special one.
Good point. Yeah.
Organic.
You'll see in a couple of the other tomes that this it has a kind of an Art Nouveau look to it. Really, or the rounded forms and so on. That's not typical. Usually they're more clear cut. So for whatever reason, Kagemni, who is I think a vizier, which is the prime minister
Of Teti. That's the cartouche of the king who he
of
was.
Teti. So it's 6th dynasty?
Yes.
This one?
About
Metallica 2.
yeah.
And Talatep is 5th dynasty.
Yeah. And these are his titles and name. Teti, he was the servant or the high priest of Teti, and he was a scribe. Look, that's the ink pot. And that's his name, Kagemni, right? So, and those tombs are like condos, one room, corridor.
John,
Yes.
my question initially was up here. What was up here?
Roof,
Oh, there would have been a roof. There
stone.
would have been you sure stone roof?
Stone, of course, and when they excavate, these are places mounded with sand, so they drill and most of the roofs have been gone. We're going to see in Ptahhotep. Ptahhotep's roof is a good example. And
Yeah.
here too, there are some
And they
roofs.
wouldn't know
that how?
They probably originally would not have been a window there.
Right.
Yes,
It would have
no,
all been
they put
roofed
this-
over. You're not supposed to come in the tombs, you know.
These are built like little, built during the lifetime of the vizier who's serving a king. The closer, the higher rank. And so they make them during their lifetime, and when they die, they stop.
Oh, and by the way, Carlos, here, you see, there's enough remaining here. The actual doorway goes up to here, so it doesn't take a lot from there to, to figure out where the original should have been. You'll probably see some, if you're looking for it, you'll probably see some.
There is more.
John, at
That's
what
right.
point,
John,
right?
John,
What's
yes,
that?
John.
Is it maybe significant that hippos kill more people than crocodiles in
There
general?
are, and
Oh, I know
They
that.
always have.
masculine, male ones do.
Yeah.
Females are the opposite. It's life, where male is
Females
destruction.
don't do that?
Females are the pregnant, the gestation, the baby. It's life, where the male isn't, like normal.
Okay. Now, in here, if anyone takes up the effacement challenge and does a study of the self-effacing Egyptians, there are a couple of different kinds of effacement to take into account, and one of them is illustrated here. Here, this has nothing to do with the priests deciding what's lived at its day and what's to come. In other words, a process of decommissioning. Here, somebody is actually taking revenge on someone. You see, here the dancers have been effaced, but the musicians who are clapping time have been effaced, and the dancers are doing their backflips here, and they're okay. Nobody's bothering them. And here, Kagyamni himself, for some reason, presumably it's Kagyamni, has been carefully effaced. For sure, that's not the Egyptian priests themselves doing it. Somebody's after somebody, in the afterlife, as it were, getting even. And we'll see this repeated throughout this tomb. It's very interesting. Why? I don't know. Interesting study for somebody. Now here we have really realized
The most exquisite, plain, not colored.
fishing scenes. It would have been colored,
This one?
for sure.
Okay.
For sure they would. See, there's some left there.
Right.
Yeah, all of this would have been colored, absolutely, certainly. And here, this is where I was saying that on the basis of this, you could reconstitute a whole fishing, Nile fishing industry. Look at what they're using, the gang hooks here. Even the rope, look at the detail of the rope, which is absolutely incredible. And the way that they're paddling. What's he got here? Here he's poling along, actually. He's pushing the boat. Yeah, he's poling along with it, just like this. Punting, they call that in England. And here you always wondered how crocodiles do it, and now you know. Somebody asked you on the street.
And look at the frog. And what is that called? Dragonfly.
Dragonflies and frogs. And this is where, okay, here, see, there's a little bit of text here. Well, we don't have the rest of it, but you can be sure that the reason there's a dragonfly and a frog here, there's some reason for it. There's grasshoppers. Almost certainly it is not just the caprice of the artist saying, well, let's put a dragonfly here. It has something to do with a story. Here's more crocodiles and hippos, very, very clumsily wrought here, strangely enough. Whereas in the other room, they're really very elegant. And the way that they're doing...
On his toe, he's harpooning in front.
Yeah.
On the skiff. So on the river Nile.
And here's okay, here, perfect. Crocodile, being crushed, snout of the crocodile being crushed by the hippo. And here, papyrus swamp.
Look how beautiful it is. You realize it's triangular. The stems.
Even so carefully realized.
Beautiful.
The papyrus grows like this.
In a triangle.
And not just a triangle, but a curved triangle, and they reproduce that
Yeah,
here.
it's full.
Really elegant. And here, now over here, they're harpooning the male crocodiles because they are the animals of Set. And here we have this is St. George and the dragon, back in the old kingdom. Here I don't know what they're bashing. But you see, again, the detail of the ropes. Here, more fish. Here, papyrus skips of them getting beautifully wrought.
It looks like he's surfing. It looks like he's surfing on this boat.
Yes, he's harpooning, and that's his wife. Kagimni's his wife. Look at this kind of like pond. So he's kind of like fishing here,
Here, I'm not sure what they're doing here. Making something. Oh, here are the hunting dogs. And by the way, I usually manage to forget this, but I remembered this time. Hold this a second, so I actually remembered the change to show you. That's a good sample.
Well, there are some others.
There are others hunting.
You need the pointer?
No.
Here.
No, I'm looking for them.
He's kissing the pig.
Yeah, wait a second, so I'll get into that in a second too. Here, because it was the dogs actually, when I first went to Ibiza, and I read, and I did a little bit of due diligence, somebody told me about this wonderful place, and I just had my first story published. And I really didn't know how to do research in those days, so I just looked in the Encyclopedia Britannica for Ibiza, and there was a little paragraph, and in the paragraph it said, there's a breed of indigenous dogs that are said to be descendants of the ancient Egyptian hunting dogs, and I've always had a thing about dogs. So that was one of the things that said, oh, well, I'll go take a look at those dogs. And sure enough, they were what the third world curs that you have around here, and these are the wild dogs that nobody was taking care of, with those. And I took them off the island, and I had them all along, and there's the latest one, who just died.
Sabu the second.
That was Sabu the second. See him? That's them.
Look.
Years and years, 5,000 years later, they stayed pure on Ibiza, and I was one of the first ones to take them off the island. And now they're a recognized breed, but still very, very rare. And they're great dogs. If you own these dogs, you don't want to have any other dogs, but you need lots of room for them to run, and they're very, very easy to live with, unless you're a rabbit, then different. And they're great dogs. So,
Hojejon.
good. Now here, now I always wondered, okay, these guys, this guy seems to be kissing a pig. Somebody else seems to be pouring water on the pig. And it was just like, mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Is this possible? On a couple of trips ago, I don't know, it might have been when you were on, Carlos, I'm not sure. There was a guy whose family owned a sheep farm in Scotland. And they said that sometimes, or fairly often, lambs were born, they couldn't take their first breath. And in fact, they would do that, mouth to mouth, in order to get the lungs pumping. And it was commonplace on their sheep farm. So I take that as more expert advice that I could give.
Well, and if that jug is water, pouring cold water,
Well,
something gives the
water could be something. Well, also maybe in conjunction with that, something of the sort. But otherwise, it doesn't look like anybody's favorite daily activity, I wouldn't have thought.
One of my dog's litter baits too. They breathe life into it.
Yeah?
One of Una's litter baits. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, well, so there you go.
John, this one.
Oh, yes, here they're hammering papyrus into mattresses. So here you have, if you wanted to start all over from scratch, you know how to fashion your paddles.
This one I want
Here.
to say, this one.
Which one? This one, go ahead.
In order to make the cattle come across the water, they really fear the crocodiles. So they have to have the leader bring them and they follow. In order to make the leader come in and rush into the water without thinking, is having the baby of the mother. So she's crossing, look at her eyes, very excited and baby, and the father, come on in. So they cross the river. And look at this scene with the baby tied to the mother.
Hobbled.
So, and it's nursing, and this one milking the cow here.
Again, hobbled, so she can't, as they say, kick the bucket. So all of these things, this is, fording the great river, and this comes filtering down into possibly even something to do like the sacrifice of Abraham, where you have to be willing to sacrifice your young in order to get to your higher.
Beautiful sandals to Kagimni right there. Very nice sandals. And behind, who's this? Behind Frank, there is a really very well realized, so detailed cargo boat loaded like Noah. See? Very beautiful boats, really, with grain and with animals, and it's really beautifully realized. So intricate detail.
These
Yalla?
aren't cows as we know them. I mean,
Yes,
Oh, yeah,
they
yeah,
are.
they are.
but why do the mother heifers have steer horns on them?
They do. So you look at them, you see them here sometimes. I mean, when you see Hathor. Hathor is female, and she has horns. Don't Texas Longhorns have horns? The females, don't the cows have horns?
Not like the
No
not like the
pictures.
bulls.
There are others.
have.
But they have horns.
Some small amount.
Really? Well, I don't know, but generally.
We'll stop
Well,
photo.
Yeah, here they don't.
There are some strangers.
Be like this.
Sometimes they
Yeah.
get knocked off too.
Try
That's
to
true.
convince them.
That's a good point.
What if they're other animals? I mean, their tails don't look like cow tails either. And there
Well,
are plenty
water
of
buffalo.
giant
Yeah, they do.
animals here.
They look like.
Quite a bit longer, huh?
No, maybe.
Maybe like 3 times the size.
But it could be that the females don't have, like these two here.
They don't.
The mother, the father, and then the children. The first one being female, the rest being male.
Are we sure they're the same animal?
No.
I don't know. Look the same head, the same head. Well, that's another good study. That's for somebody else to do, not me, but there it is. No, seriously, that's a good point. Go into the literature and check it through. Now here is, we'll see a better one yet. Here's our bird netting scene in the swamps. Except here it is actually with it's shown in rather peculiar perspective here, because these are the guys who should be lying down in the swamp, right, with the net spread. And here's the guy who is waiting for the decoys, and the decoys are attracting all kinds of wild birds. And this guy is in front, because all of the others are concealed in the marshes, not to scare the birds away. And he's got a long scarf, and he's going like this as a signal that to pull the net shut and get the birds. And until recently, when the swamps have all disappeared, they were hunting. They were trapping birds in this fashion. We'll see better ones.
Also, it's very nice here to show the cage full of birds, and look how much they are feeding them. This is, you see, how much they are pouring lots of food and fattening. Even here, they're kind of like force feeding the birds for maybe
Probably,
Foie gras.
foie gras.
Yeah, we'll
On
see
the
the
other
birds.
side, You see a great deal of fishing. Wonderful. Huge fishes too. You know? A lot of fishing and the mysterious arm posture that
I don't know
who
what that
knows.
means.
Yeah. But then here, over here, John, right up there, you see the force feeding of the hyena.
Oh, yeah, there, that's a very, the best of these is in Medadogo, we don't go. What purpose the hyena serves, I have absolutely no idea. Pet hyena is nobody's favorite idea. But it serves some purpose, and here they are presumably force feeding it or medicating it. And there's a whole, this is a whole big veterinary scene. They're doing something or another with the cattle there. Again, more, this is veterinary in some way, shape, or form. But again, part of the bigger study, why is this particular scene in many of the tombs, and what the devil are they doing? I've never seen anything really adequate about it, but again, a bit of research nowadays, especially with the internet available, and you find out things that up until a couple of decades ago, you'd have to go to the, a major Egyptological library and research for 2 days to try and figure out any one of these things, and now you could theoretically pretty much have it at your fingertips.
The birds in here with their different movements and necks and rounds. Look at them. It's like a beautiful portrait of different postures and gestures and movements of the birds. They sound to me. It's very much as if it has some musical hint
Maybe,
to me.
maybe.
Here is Meruka, of course.
And here there's a scribe writing
Right.
the results of whatever the devil it is that they do.
Maybe it's an inventory. It's listing how many or
Yeah, but
whatever.
here they're doing, it's in other words, it's like a report.
His hands are backwards,
Yes, sometimes
Yes.
you see that.
both of them.
That's right, sometimes, here, this one is, is this one correct? Wait.
It looks
No, it's
twisted back
backwards.
on, you can see one nipple.
If it was twisted, his thumb would be pointing the other way.
The
It's
other
just
way, yes.
backwards.
Here you can only
And
see
look at
one
the,
nipple.
actually, look at the
Yeah.
detail here.
Yeah.
Look at the
It's all up.
physical detail of the realization of the fingernails and the flex of the fingers. And you see here, he's got this scepter, it's called Sechem, meaning power. Sechemet, the goddess is female, feminine power. Here he's got the Sechem behind him, and this opposite scene here. Is it here? No, not here. Sometimes you'll see him with the Sechem in front of him. I'm sure we have that here somewhere.
His other hand is backwards too.
Yeah,
Both his feet are right.
yeah, it's often they have 2 left hands or 2 right hands.
This is right and left on the wrong side.
Both wrong sides, yeah.
Weird.
It's certainly not that the guy mixed up right and left. Would like it to have us believe.
No, it looks like it would be his back is facing us.
Right,
If
yeah.
his back was facing us.
Yeah, what was it?
His belly button is there.
Where's Jack?
Who's got my jacket? Oh, you're not here. Okay. Now, here's more for the
Everyone?
more for the hypothesis, the self-effacing Egyptian hypothesis. Here you have these guys. What exactly they're doing, I don't know. But somebody has effaced the first one. And we'll see that throughout this tomb. Sometimes the first 2. Some reason why somebody did that specifically.
Maybe
My
when you
guess,
switch this off, so you kill the whole line behind it. This is
Maybe.
offerings to be brought to Kagemi's tomb. You're
Right. Maybe.
receiving that.
maybe, but it's certainly deliberate, and it's a pattern in this tomb, and it would be really interesting to figure it out.
Let's go.
Oh, here too. You're right behind you.
Yeah.
Again, the same. Carefully done. The first one.
Sometimes the second.
Sometimes the second, but
And here his hands are the right way.
yeah, they know what they're doing. Right.
Right across
Right.
from another one.
Yeah.
This is Kagemi wearing the cheetah. Look at the head of the
Oh, yeah.
cheetah and the skin of the cheetah. Because here,
Probably the same lesson that they have in Central America,
among the Indian tribes there that killing the jaguar is single-handed is the test of the initiation into manhood. Wouldn't surprise me if something of that sort is symbolized, at least here, whether or not they had cheetahs
Break, please.
to hunt,
Give a-
whether or not they had cheetahs to hunt in Old Kingdom Egypt, running around wild, I doubt. They'd have to go to Africa to get them. Oh, but here's an instance of the second in front.
And here in the
And
back.
here behind.
Yes, but
And the
the
hands
cheetah, the
correspond.
cheetah here,
Yeah.
or in Egypt, when they wear this, it's a high priest costume.
Yeah.
So he reached this level. Among other titles he had and he carried, he was the high scribe of Teti, vizier, and high priest.
And
of
also, you
six
see, he has
dynasties.
a little short beard. The king has a straight
An
beard. The
artificial.
gods have an
The king
artificial-
has
the
an
gods-
artificial one, but this one
the
is
gods have
growing
a curved
beard.
beard, and he has a little short one. So that's one of the
Let's-
attributes of a high level of achievement. Well, achievement anyway. This is what Sahara calls the hall of the baskets. All kinds of elaborate straw baskets here that they should, if they had any sense, be reproducing today to sell to the brothels, but they don't. They only have one or two different kinds of baskets. And here they're bringing all the offerings in. That is the so-called false door that supposedly, standard story, the disembodied soul can go through that and then wander around the outside world at will, enjoy himself, and then come back in. I'm pretty sure it's a lot more than that, but I'm not sure exactly what.
Was that a pool of water in front of it?
No,
No, that was an offering table.
always against the door there is an offering table, and usually they have Hotep. A hieroglyph stands for
Well,
peace.
for accomplishment, they always say for peace, but really it's transformation, it's final accomplishment.
Yeah.
My pal Rupert Sheldrake assures me that with the right illegal substance in you, you too can go right through that door. So Carlos, you want to try that one of these days?
Maybe I will.
On the next trip, come in here, because I can't afford to do this, because I suddenly might not be around to talk all this blabber.
By the way, the color you see in this detail, which is one of the finest of all art line compared to what we saw together, is about 2400 BC. So,
And again, if you use solvent on it, it would come right back to look as new. It's not that it's just dirty, not weathered. And here again, here's our second guy.
or no, actually, I don't know. He's, yeah, واحد اثنين ثلاثة, number 4.
Something very interesting here.
ماشي.
Okay, continue.
Let's squeeze into this little baby room.
This is a favorite room.
Yeah, very special. حلوة. Thank you.
John,
What?
he gave us the thumbs up to go ahead and
Who did?
photograph it.
Now, good.
Okay.
Darky.
Now, in the story of Alibaba and the 40 thieves, right? And they hide they're hidden away in oil jars, and you always think, well, maybe you don't always think, but if you think about it, that must be a pretty sizable, a pretty small thief, or a very large jar that's going to be thief-sized. But there they are. You can hide the thief of your choice in one of those oil jars, which I
Look at the look
which I
of
think are
it.
pretty cool.
To slide them in.
I'd like to have a few of those floating.
Very nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
And
Cool oil jars.
thieves in the jewelry
Yeah,
room
all of them.
match.
all of this
Look
stuff
at
is
boxes.
our offerings, of boxes of jewelry and
Here, like this one, see, this necklace and other necklaces.
Sometimes it's in-
Ah, here, there is another necklace, so these are boxes full of jewelry, and look at the beautiful designs of the amphoras and sacred special oils. Actually, some oils, since they were more meaningful and more precious and rare than jewelry, like when they broke into Tutankhamun tomb, first, in the ancient days, they took the sacred oils and they left all. So for a second time they went, they took some jewelry, but
And here?
You think it was medicinal?
it was a lot of
Who knows?
meanings, medicinal. and
here's another one,
berries.
see, the first, second guy here.
Yeah,
So this is, I'm fascinated by this.
look at the beautiful Kagirni standing here with his titles and everything. This side is intact, while this side has been, I think, exposed most to the sun. So it's faded. Huh?
Yeah. What's
Huh?
that?
This room had a door, and until this moment, we can see the hinge. It's the wooden hinge of 2400 BC.
Yeah.
You can touch some organic 2400 BC door. Yeah?
Okay.
Let's go.
A framework that goes like this and then down, and that's what the profiles of the tombs were like, sort of. With
Like
the-
houses.
Hmm?
Like houses.
Like,
Houses.
well, no, because in other words, the top was curved like this, like a bench, and then the edges were vertical, but the roofs got covered over, looking like that. So that's what
Okay.
they called it, mastabas.
Okay.
Okay, everybody?
Okay, now this.
Then into a tree, not a bunch of old rings.
Now, low grid coming up, and you take my advice now at your peril. When you go through these low grid places, if you keep your hand up in front of your forehead, you can use all of the space. And if you don't have your head there, make one mistake, you know that you've hit just hard stones.
Hater.
Right?
Gonzalez coming around the toe.
This one's easy for my love. The others are not. And then here. Yeah, you got a good head. I had one. Now, originally, these are the tombs of the 5th and 6th dynasty pharaohs. According to Jeremy Nadler and his very impressive book, Shamanic Wisdom of the Pyramid Text, even these were not meant to be tombs and that the pharaohs were not in fact buried in them, says Jeremy, who is a careful scholar, who's not a unicorn. But I always took it as, I mean, I never bought that the Giza pyramids in Dashur were tombs, for the simple reason that there was no evidence that they ever were, and no inscriptions, and the whole inner structure of the tomb, so-called tombs of the pyramids, was wildly inconducive to any kind of a burial. These are different. Here are the so-called, they are the pyramid texts. They are really the pyramid texts. But they don't necessarily reflect burial exactly here. Here's the sarcophagus that would have had other sarcophagi, inside nested. Later on there would be 7 coffin inside, one inside another inside, 3 more shrines, so that there were 7 of them. Here, we don't know. But they have this giant thing that obviously was not come through and a passage we just walked down. But here it's easily explained how they got it here, because this is not that very far. They would have dropped it down and then roofed it over. That, by the way, is subsidence. So no puzzle there. And the walls would have been entirely covered with hieroglyphs, as they are in the Unas pyramid, which has been shut to the public for over 20 years. Used to be able to get into it. And now they say they're going to open it to the public again. On certain of the trips, when I have really high-end trips, with people with lots and lots of money, we can, we could still get into Unas pyramid, but it was a lot of money. And usually the people, it's just a strange thing. Maybe it's cosmological, that the people with the most money are the ones who are least comprehending of what they're looking at when it comes to Egypt. Anyway, you could get in there. Now, until recently, so I don't know. So Nadler's book it's complicated, but anyone willing, interested in pursuing it, as far as it can be pursued, it's recommended reading, because I was pretty convinced that there isn't evidence, and that these are places of the highest initiation, and that the texts were meant for the pharaohs themselves, or for the highest level of initiated students to carry out the ultimate rites, which apparently often involve what they do in certain tribal societies, where the shaman goes into a state of suspended animation and gets literally entombed in a tomb, with the tomb covered over him, and then X number of days later, the priests who've already passed the initiation lift the cover off, and if the shaman is still alive, or the apprentice shaman is now alive, he is now a shaman, and if he isn't, he's a dead apprentice shaman, and better luck next time. So whether or not that was actually what was carried out here, I do not know, and maybe no one can know. Meanwhile, the texts themselves are a scholar's nightmare that's only now maybe getting to the bottom of. And the reason is that this is Old Kingdom writing. Later on, in the New Kingdom and the Middle Kingdom, there'd be words that comprise 4 or 5 symbols. And then after the word, there would be what's called a determinative. If it was an idea or a concept, it would be a little papyrus scroll. If it referred to a plant, it would be a little plant. If it referred to an animal, it would be, it would have some animal determinative. So it told you that that sequence of letters referred to that one of his meanings. And otherwise, there could be a lot of meanings for those 3 symbols. But here, there's no such thing, so you don't know where the words begin and where they end. And even if you were able to figure out, you might not know what they referred to. So when I wrote The Serpent, and I went to whatever, there were 4 or 5 the scholars have devoted their whole lives to this since, let's say, 1850 or so, when the hieroglyphs, it was understood that Champollion had actually cracked the code, at least initially cracking the code, and the translations offered were so different from each other that it was hard to imagine that they were the same, based upon the same groups of glyphs. Now, in the last 10 years or so, there's an Egyptologist called James Allen, who I think has got somewhere close. I mean, I'm not fit to judge because I don't know, but there's a kind of an intuitive sense that these are, I mean, it's now sort of understood that these are kind of manuals for getting through the underworld, and this is not hocus pocus, that it refers to a spiritual journey. So starting off from that point, there are some of the translations that seem to take that into consideration, and others that just regard it as hocus pocus and do translations as if that jumble represents the thinking pattern of the people that built all of this fabulous art, fabulous architecture and did all of this fabulous art. So you take it as a given that it has to make sense, otherwise it wouldn't go this trouble to do it. And Naylor, I think, is somewhere in the ballpark. And then recently, in James Allen, and there's another recent book that makes a kind of sense. That woman, what's her name again? Something Morrow. Susan Bryn Morrow. Susan Bryn Morrow, her husband is a journalist involved in it, where she's seeing it as a very high form of poetry. I have the book with me and actually haven't gone around to reading it. She's on to something too. Anyway, this is a nightmarish job for the scholars. What happens subsequently is the New Kingdom and Middle Kingdom, they then come up with the system of determinatives, and so that's the kind of classical Egyptian. And then as time goes on in Ptolemaic times, it complexifies still further with all kinds of visual and verbal and sound puns, and it becomes more complicated again. And I use as an analogy, roughly, that the pyramid texts are sort of like reading Chaucer. You barely know that it's English. In Middle and New Kingdom times, it's sort of like Victorian, Thackeray and Dickens and Jane Austen and all of those good writers, where it's really, it's basically literature, and you can read it and enjoy it for what it is. And then when you get to Ptolemaic times, it's like Finnegan's Wake, if you've ever tried to battle your way through Joyce's Finnegan's Wake, where it's full of puns and all sorts of things. To me, I'm not a great Joyce fan. It's literary showing off. And it doesn't interest me that much. What?
Self-satisfied.
I'm not a great Joyce fan. But anyway, something of that sort. And in the Unisphere, and originally, here we see our starfish. Normally, when this is our second day, to see the starfish for the first time, that would have all been midnight blue, and the starfish in gold. Everyone being the soul of a dead king. And the hieroglyphs themselves would have been midnight blue with the, I think in gold or in white, with the actual glyphs left white. And one of the reasons they closed Unas was that thousands of people were going through there, and the sweat and the breath was destroying the color. What they've done now, I don't know, I haven't been there since they've reopened it to the public at some ferocious price, but somewhere along the line, someone good and rich will want to do it, and they'll get in there again. Or if we got our panel together of geologists, then they'll open it up for us. Actually, when we were here during the revolution, when we were the only tourists in Egypt, they were opening everything for us. They were just happy to have us here. All kinds of things were being opened for us. It was really cool. Okay, that's about it for here.
John, this is the pyramid text.
These are the pyramid texts, yes. And they are
what the later funerary texts, the Book of the Caverns and the Book of the Gates and the Book of what is in the Duat, they're all derived from this.
From this.
And why they had to do that, I have no idea why they made still more complex. But it's it seems to be the normal course of development. And we talked about this a few times, of how a style starts off relatively simple and geometric, and then gradually becomes more complicated and more precisely executed to become still more complicated, and finally it's a big jumble and they start all over again. So, who knows?
John,
Yes?
have there been many samples taken of like particulate matter inside of different sarcophagi to determine what may have been in there all those years ago?
That seems.
I don't know. It would sort of, you would think that it would be something they would be rushing to do.
You
But-
think that if you found salts from deteriorated organic matter, or even decomposed cotton or anything like
You
that?
should be able to tell a lot from that, and Shock knows a lot about that sort of thing, but it's a good question. I don't know. I know they've done a few things on mummies and things of that nature, and, well, a couple of years ago found on mummies, late mummies, Ptolemaic, I think, or maybe Roman era, where they found traces of cocaine in it. So, I mean, there's only one place where cocaine comes from, and that's South America. And they argued, of course, the academics were shouting and screaming and saying it was a mistake and all the rest of it.
There are like a struggle to lift the top off of a sarcophagus.
What?
Yeah, that's how they carry the stones around.
Well, now that's as good reasoning as any. Whoa, it's easy. Yeah.
There's other suggestive material that says that South America was like connected to here in some way, trade or some
I
other
think,
way.
well, there's a lot of stuff out there that there was intercourse between them. Book back in the 70s by a guy with impeccable credentials but in another field, and Barry Fell, called two books, both bestsellers, one called America BC, where there were things, Egyptian things 4 feet deep in a field in Indiana or something like that. What? Who put those there? And there's a Canadian tribe called Micmac that has a form of writing that seems to include a number of quite familiar Egyptian hieroglyphs. They invent them independently? Well, who knows? I don't know. But yeah, there's plenty. There's America BC and Saga America, and his fellow academics trashed him to death. And also he shows that there are lots of megalithic sites in America, and that's absolutely, you can't miss that. You have to be a real idiot.
Machu Picchu has similar stone construction to the temples that we've been
Well,
seeing.
similar enough so that it's hard to imagine them coming up with it completely independently. And the megalithic sites are rife in America. And, there's no problem with them in England and Scotland and Wales and Norway. And they're BC for the most part. And in America, the idiots call them colonial root cellars. My sister had one of those in a property she owned in White Plains, in New York, or next door, people at the house next door. And when you look at the way they were sited, this was on a cliff face with big 3-4 ton stone blocks covering them. And the house was more than 100 yards away. So what kind of colonial, there's 3 feet of snow there in the winter, and they're putting 3-ton blocks of stone to keep their potatoes good, where they are living in wooden huts, barely able to keep themselves warm. But the potatoes are 200 feet away, perfectly secure, in a stone structure roofed by 3-ton slabs. These are fucking morons, and they to this day they control. It's their field, as it were. Naturally, now
with the internet at our disposal, they can no longer shut this stuff up for generations upon generations, sometimes burying it. It's always thought, I'll get into this, the idea whose time has come versus the idea whose time is not yet gone. Who knows what kind of great stuff really got buried for good, absolutely for good. When you look at things like Tesla and the Royal Life microscope and stuff like that, and things of this nature, only by luck did it survive, and suddenly 100 years later people recognize what great geniuses these guys were. Who knows what disappeared for good because the academics put it to sleep. What?
What would it take?
Cooking hassling us down. He was hassling us down in the face for doing filming. Yeah. No, I saw.
That ceiling in there stays up.
ايوه 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 welcome.
Mutton jab.
Yeah, like maybe. بعدين.
They were this close to the end.
Because they start from back there.
Right.
And when the owner of the tomb dies, work stops.
That's why it's not finished here. But, John, I will have to say one thing and then go ahead. This is how they built the tomb. Rock, blocks of limestone, one after one, so that's the rough quality of it. And with just a little touch of sanding, you get to the better quality. Then it stages. Yellow?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, then here, look, there were like 6 or 7 groups of artists, levels or groups. And after building the tomb and smoothing the rocks, the surface, they will come and paint. Look at this outline, right? And they do it in grids first. Look at the faint grid lines, see? Vertical and horizontal. And then they copy what they have, the sketches that is approved already by the supreme artist, and they do it according to scale. So when you see, let's get back here, that's the scene, and this is half cut. Look at this, half cut, and then it's forgotten or it's left as it is. So here is how they really take the walls from around, so the relief comes out. That's the main one. And then a finer artist will come and do just a little touch with hair detail, eye and nostril and muscles. See the difference?
And actually, you notice this is high relief, so that's much more difficult. You have to carve the surface away, leaving the drawing that you're trying to arrive at, sort of emerging out of the stone. And what's remarkable is to see it in operation like this. We've seen it a couple of times, but not as clearly as this. The amount of detail and expression that they derive out of let's say the outline. That's about 1/8 of an inch, and then you look at the musculature and the curvature of the papyrus stalks and the hand grip on the lotus and the lotus bud. It's really amazing. And then of course they paint it as you saw inside. So this is pretty prodigious, and you have them starting, obviously, the skilled, well, let's say the finishing guys are starting from the middle and working this way, and the other starting guys are going that way, I'm pretty sure. And finishing up, I'm not sure if they're all finished at the end there. But you see, there is a method to it, and when Ptah dies, work stops. And why they did that exactly, I don't
Well,
know.
the tomb is shut,
I guess
and it
the
will be
tomb-
open until a second member of the family would use, because these are like a couple of rooms. And
Some of them are.
dedicated. Yes, here is Ptah
Himself?
himself, yes, very high official personnel for Unes, for Venice,
Yeah,
the fifth dynasty. This is his son. So you see his lock of hair
And he's
his
a boy,
naked
so he's
bird.
naked.
Is that
That's
bird?
the
That's the
hoopoe.
hoopoe.
The hoopoe.
And John
Oh,
already explained that he was in the Sufi theater
So, yeah.
play.
In the play, and then what is it, something, Atar el-Adin, what is that?
الطائر
The Din el-Atar,
Mhm.
the 10th century
Mm.
Persian poet, I think.
Mm.
Yeah, it was a
And-
beautiful, it was a great rendering of it theatrically, it was really good.
And this text here, it says that he's the praised one, worked for, actually, that's 32, he worked for 2 kings, and that's his name, Ptah
Hotel.
Hotep. That's alone is Hotep, but they put the T and P for stressing on Tep.
Meaning the realization of Ptah, who is the architect of heaven and earth. So all of those Hoteps, all of those names, Ramesses, they all have
Hotep.
a deeper meaning than that. Well, I mean, so do our names too, if you just go back to them.
And the grown-up, when naked like this and you see genitals, so that's a slave. Other than that, it's covered, then he's a normal worker. Or the baby also are in naked mode.
Adolescents.
And here, actually, is one of the most beautiful, although it isn't totally finished, but look at the posture of the ladies bringing the offerings and the goodness and the wealth with vegetables and fruits and animals to the tomb. Look at how each one has a different basket, So if this would have been a great offering scene for women, if it was finished, still it is. This is very interesting. This here had the statue of Ptah, the owner of the tomb, and then we go to the master.
So Isla,
Now,
what was back there?
this must have been shut. Look, John.
But
Maybe when we open, we find something.
I don't know. Yeah, it does look like something sealed in there.
Maybe it was planned to be another room and changed for no more members.
Unfinished room.
This was the sun room, and here is the tower. You have the flashlight, yes? Carlos, see the ceiling?
Yeah.
The ceiling also?
Yeah, this is original, that ceiling.
Yeah, and
That's
it's,
how it all would have been.
Oh, this is original.
This is original.
yes, and that's how ceilings
And
might have been.
they are actually in stone, but they replicate the earlier ceilings that would have been palm logs.
Okay.
So, but I mean, this is going to a lot of trouble to capture a symbol that, when it's palm logs, it's about the easiest way you can build a ceiling. You just stack them up next to each other. When it's like this, that's a big job to get to carve all of those things. Come on in.
John was talking about the ceiling.
Well, we're just talking about the ceiling now. That's original. That's what all of the tombs would have had to begin with. And now come in here, and we'll start over here. And there's a sequence to these, without either Ryan or anyone else, as far as I know, knows exactly how the sequence was meant to be. But up here, you have Tautat himself, and you see that he's seated on a chair under which are his greyhounds and his monkey.
usual story. He wanted to remember in the afterlife his pet dogs and his pet monkey. Sometimes, though, you'll see a captured enemy under his seat, or sometimes if it's a woman, a lion. Well, I mean, did he want to remember his pet captives? I don't think so. What's symbolized here, we've seen this already at Edfu, basically seated on or standing on means master of. So here his greyhounds represent instinct under control. In ancient Egyptian they're called Fesemu Heru, which means the greyhounds of Horus, or the hounds of Horus. And the monkey probably serves that same purpose as it does in India and China. It represents the chattering intellect, which also has to be under control. And here is Ptahhotep getting, doing his esoteric practice, John style. None of this starving in the desert and celibacy and all the rest of it. Here he is getting a kind of a foot massage, and here he's getting a manicure, and over here.
And here is a facial.
The what?
Head massage.
I didn't see that. Yeah. Facial, and over here are the musicians. Where are they?
Look at this one, flute player. See?
Oh yeah, flute
and
player.
the here, John. The flute player.
Oh yeah.
The singer.
Singer, right.
There is a harpist. Look at the blind man playing the harp.
Yeah, the harpists
Here.
are often blind. It's a strange thing. Blind harpists, and it's funny. There's a poem of the blind harpist, which I think is, the Egyptologists only read on the literal level, but he's talking about the futility. The blind harpist is talking about the futility of the things of this life, and where are they now? They're in their pyramids. Well, he's blind, so he doesn't see beneath the surface of things. Interesting poem. I forget exactly where it's from. Now over here,
It starts from top.
we start at the top, and why exactly start from the top? See, I can't see him.
Well, the blue here is the Nile, where lotuses are floating, right? And there are some guys, up there gathering reeds, and stuff. Where down below here they use the reeds to doing those skiff boats, right?
Again, transformational
From
activity.
raw to manufactured.
No, wait a second.
Here, the girls.
Oh, yeah, wait, who's gonna?
The girls making some setups at
Oh,
yoga.
They're doing kids
Whirling?
games, children's games,
Okay.
playing whirling around, and that was determined that they were. Oh yeah, they're doing a kind of yoga or exercises.
Here.
And some of the games, I know that whirly one is supposed to be symbolizing
This
the
one.
4 directions.
This.
One of the better Egyptologists figured that out.
Then here, they're picking the grapes
The vineyards.
and they're juicing it.
Here they're trampling.
Look.
They're trampling the grapes.
And the bridge man here is squeezing the last
The last
drop of the flesh or the mist of the wine.
Yeah, the must, it's called, and that's a really vivid little scene there.
Yeah. Then here, John.
Now over here, these are the hunting scenes.
Yeah, look.
And here you see all of the animals of the desert.
Yeah.
And where are they actually? Where are
Here,
they?
that's one. This one.
Oh no, they're copulating.
And this
So,
one too.
and that's again, that's the Setian force reproducing itself. Over here, down below,
Here,
here they're hunting. Here you have the saying that's come down to this day, and here's a visual representation of it, of being scared shitless. They've got a bull tied and a lion savaging it. And there's a book about the sacred symbolism of ancient Greece by a French scholar who decodes the astronomical astrological symbolism of Greek vases. And there, it's a common scene of the lion savaging the bull, and he takes that to mean, I think probably correctly, summer, the bull of Taurus being being, brought down by
Leo.
by Leo the lion, and it is a male lion. And that's probably the case, but it may be processional. I'm not sure. I don't see where that would fit in here, but it could be somebody does a deeper study and finds that there is an overriding astronomical symbolism to this. Here you have a really good, well, that's down below, wait a second. Here you have really good representations of the greyhounds pulling down the various antelopes and gazelles of the desert. If I have a South African with me on the trip, they know instantly one's a gazelle and one's an Ibu? No.
Ibis.
The what?
Ibis.
No.
No,
Eland?
the eland, yeah, elands and kudus was the one I was thinking of. What they are, which are not indigenous to Egypt, so maybe they brought them up specially, to go hunting. I'm not sure. But anyway, they're
with a scorpion.
You see the dogs hunting, and that's exactly how they do it when they go after deer. When I got to Ibiza, the only thing left was rabbits, but they're exactly the same dogs, except now most of them don't have curly tails. They have straight greyhoundy tails, but sometimes they still come through with curly tails. Up here, I don't know what this is. It's a hedgehog. No.
Oh, here is the hedgehog. Right here,
Here's
see?
a hedgehog.
With a scorpion in his...
Over the next one is a mongoose on this side here.
Right here is the mongoose
What's
here.
the next one?
That wild cat, I think. Look.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So,
Anyway.
Don't know what that's... All of that has to do, one way or another, with the set-horus dichotomy. Over
John,
here, this is really interesting. These guys are building papyrus rafts, and it was pointed out by an Egyptologist who was also a doctor, who was the first one that noticed it, as far as I know, that many of these workers have not deformities, but they have
Hernia?
Yeah, they have hernias. They have something wrong. Hernias. They've got this, what is it, swollen testicles. They have all kinds of things wrong with them that don't prevent them from working, but they're there. They have to be there for a reason. Yeah, there's an umbilical hernia. I have no idea why they were doing this, other than, I'm just ballparking it now, maybe it has to do with the papyrus is the symbol of they're building a craft that's going to take them through life. The papyrus itself is the symbol of northern Egypt for organic life. And so maybe they're showing that they're working their way through life and they have all of these, they're suffering from these various ailments, but nevertheless persisting in their, in their professions. As I said, I'm ballparking it, but maybe this, anyway, put it this way, it's not there just for the hell of it because Ptolemy wanted to remember that all of his workmen had hernias and swollen testicles. Can't be that, it has to be something a bit more profound. Here, this is the best of the best that I know anyway, of the hunting in the marshes. And here you have the guys, you have them sitting. One, two, it's funny though, they're different, there's one more. And here he's stretching the cord because the cotton net is filled up with birds. And so he gives the signal. Here, the guys are sitting here. They pull the signal, they pull back the cord and trap the birds. But there are more, there are more guys.
Sitting? No,
Right.
There's 7, right?
Yeah, but here there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys. One guy has disappeared and says, I do the work, I'm going to lunch. I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, there's a reason for it. Anyway, they're very vivid here. And here are, the guys are playing
board game.
They are playing seriously macho games here. Whacking each other with poles. And are the crocodiles down here? No, they're just having fun beating the shit out of each other.
Well, somebody here is top VIP having
and
wine
very, I mean, they're really,
look, serious.
This is,
That doesn't look like a game.
Well,
Looks
it
like
is.
his pole is right through the chest of this guy over here.
No.
It does.
But he's
Then
still
comes
alive.
that, I think you're right, it does look that way.
And they're only hitting each other on opposite boats, as it seems.
I don't know, but it's, anyway, they're not fooling around, that's for sure. See, it's this sort of thing they were talking about before. The only thing that you have here explaining what that is that little bit of stuff there. So it would be a really interesting study because these things are so vivid and they repeat themselves. And one other hoopoe being offered here, and there's Tata up here.
But do you notice? It's like levels in his life. Like that's him when he's younger. Look
Yeah.
how he got older and more like higher status, huh?
Yeah.
And now he has a high
Now
priest
they're
position.
bringing, yeah, now they're bringing animals that I can't see well enough to see those.
Here, those.
But wrestlers who are with me say that those are absolutely standard wrestling scenes, wrestling holds to this day. Then they're bringing animals tribute, probably from Africa. Something that is a lion. Isn't it?
Yeah, cage. Where is the cage?
Something-
Ah, here. Look at the cages.
Yes.
Lion and tiger or some
I'm
cheetah.
not tiger, cheetah, maybe.
Cheetah. And here is more of the dogs.
More hunting.
Greyhound.
The greyhounds.
Yeah, and more gazelles and different antelopes. But then here,
And
show me
down
this one, where, oh, look at this one. It's hard, you can hardly see it, so you could take a look. The vet is kind of like giving some kind of painkiller or something to that cow because she's delivering. Look, she's delivering a baby. Look at the calf coming out now. See, she has a baby. Delivering the baby. Then those huge fat
Well,
calves.
here,
Look
those
at
are, you know, in the Bible, it talks about the fatted calf. And what's a fatted calf? That's a fatted calf, a force-fed steer. The steer or both, I'm not sure. Anyway, down here, bird offerings. When I saw those at first, there's a study in there. That's a text on top. The numbers, why the birds are doing this, and sometimes they're looking backwards. This isn't just decoration. It feels like music, but I don't know if it is. It's a strange relief and a quite unique one. You see bird offerings later, often, but not.
These are numbered. This is 100,000, that's 1,000,
Right.
those are 200. So each species
I don't
is
know.
kind of like, we have this much of
More-
this kind.
More
This
interesting,
many of this
more
kind.
interesting studies for somebody with the time to specialize in
The,
this.
the false doors are very special.
These are the two different false
What is
doors. Certainly have different functions, which I don't know, but neither does anyone else, so you're not missing anything. There's the color still intact, and if they wanted to restore it with the correct solvents, wouldn't take them that long, and you get this
Shiny.
really vivid. You know, well, we have seen it vivid in
Abydos.
no, not even Abydos, yes, but in Deir Medina,
But
in Sennacherib's tomb, where the colors were completely intact.
cheetah skin.
I have to see it again.
No.
See the skin costume of the high priest.
And he's holding the baguettes on that's bread over the offering
It's
table.
said to be bread, I'm not sure I believe that.
Oh, it's written.
Maybe
It's
is it
written.
bread?
Yes. And here are the arcs. Each one is 1,000 beer, 1,000 linen.
So,
You know, 1,000 of goose, goat. You know, thousands. Look how much are there. But see, the most beautiful of all lotus and papyrus are right here. And this one too. I love this one. Very
And
beautiful.
colors still intact. Imagine what this would look like when it was all complete. It's pretty spectacular. I'd rather not be buried, but if I was going to be buried, I wouldn't mind this.
In style.
Just not yet.
And then-
Okay, that's about it, or about that.
What's this symbol down here?
Oh, that's the Hotep sign. The what looks like, sort of like, almost like a phallic. And it'd be in keeping with offerings and, real legend of straightforward begin like that. Usually there's wonder what they, oh, I guess they put the guard around it so that people didn't walk over on it.
Yeah. What about that slab? Is there usually?
That's not there, both sides. That's a rolled, that's a curtain, right, that winds up and gives access to the outside. But you see, there's a whole study here. Why is the pole star like this with all of the writing and so on? And that can be absolutely geometric and clean and harkening back to the earlier time. There's a lot. Again, anybody interested in that, you Google up Taoist and see if anything comes up. That's a full-blown study on this tomb. There probably is somewhere or another. And very often those things are informative in the sense of they're doing this, they're doing that, and all the rest. And then you schwallerize it and you get to the inner meaning of it. Often you can do that, sometimes not. Often, that's how Schwaller worked himself, with lots of revelations in between, and that's how I worked with Schwaller.
Is it known for how long or wide these areas of the tomb are sealed? Because if you go outside, you can see there's a big area over here that's sealed off. Every entrance is sealed off.
Oh, I have no idea. Why? Sealed off probably modern, right?
It seems to be,
yeah, they close it off so that people don't go and share.
Somewhat.
Unfinished tomb.
I've noticed this.
No,
Why would they
But I,
seal off?
so I figured out for women anyway, because the women have a difficult time saying no when somebody's trying to sell them something. But there's a good solution. Imagine the guys are hitting on you, and you don't want it. It's easy to get rid of it.
Yes, but if you want something considerate, they haven't seen rockers for a while.
Yeah.
You can consider the book if you did not get it from there. There are bookmarks and postcards. Anything? We may have them out buying a little gift to give away to anyone.
As usual, we're actually sort of running out of time. So, but a lot of this we covered at Hatshepsut's temple, at the architecture and the reproducing in stone at tremendous, amount of energy goes into reproducing in stone what was easy in organic matter. These were, all of these crenellated walls were bundles of papyrus, daubed with mud, and in between, mud, adobe walls. And so it was very easy to construct. I mean, in a desert climate, really permanent structures. When you go, if we had a whole day to do Saqqara, we'd try and get permission to go to those earliest First and Second Dynasty tombs that are just mud brick. And it's surprising how well the mud brick has weathered over 5,000 years. But to do this in stone, and you look at the precision of the work, this is supposed to be the first major stone structure. It really doesn't look experimental, does it? I mean, it's incredibly refined. And people have done what the purpose of, it's not for, it serves no military purpose whatsoever. I mean, it's not meant as fortress walls guarding in a military camp or anything like that. And so it's, again, 50 times as much work to do these with the recessed paneling, this is called, recessed paneling, and this goes all the way around behind the step pyramid there, and then this way, and then back this way. And there's been a study, an interesting study that somebody once sent me. I have it somewhere, but I just can't keep track of everything. But someone's finding that if you work it all the way around, that the number of these recessed things is somehow is astronomical. It's like 365 of them all the way around, and I would be willing to bet Like you took really precise measurements of everything and really went at it looking for mathematical relationships. You'd find all kinds of things, music and scales and things of that nature. Because some of it, there's already enough of it so that you know it has those kinds of connotations. Now, when we go in, as I said, this is the basis of Bauhaus modern architecture. When we go through the first way, you see the stone, the palm logs and stone are the ceiling. And when we get in, on either side, you'll see these big, they're not single slabs, they're doorways, stone-fixed doorways made of blocks of stone like these. But you see that they're meant to be doorways because, I mean, to symbolize doorways because they have hinges at the bottom and the top. So it's sort of John Wayne crashing through the stone, the barroom doors.
And of course, again, the wooden lugs on top as a ceiling, and the bigger hall has mist ceiling, you know, the original one. So they replaced with this one, and it's a great op for you to take the whole colonnade with no other people but us, because it's the most amazing of all.
Wow.
This one, it's a great picture. Yeah, Reyes! Reyes! I want him to disappear. Hena, look at this.
No one there. Yeah, this is a rare ability to get this with nobody in it. You all here? You see the double doors here on either side? With the hinges on the top,
Yeah.
and hinges on the bottom, and the stone doors. So John Wayne were here, he would go through into the bar. Now, actually the significance of that is that they talk about the double doors to heaven. And again, it's another way of expressing the twin peaks of the horizon. It's with the solar disk in the center. It's one becoming two, the unmanifest becoming the manifest. And so with the double doors to heaven, that's, you know, unity dividing itself into polarity, into two. So this is, you know, this is the entry into the temple itself. And when you go down these extraordinary engaged columns, here come the people now. You get a sense of it. When I first came here, it felt like walking down, there was a musical sense of it, walking down as though I were in the inside of a three-dimensional guitar stem. And when I looked into it a bit further, the usual academics say that they did these engaged columns because they were unsure of the load-bearing capacity of the columns themselves, which is really fucking stupid. And all of that stuff on the top there now, that's all added on just for protection. At the very end, there was enough there so they could reconstruct what it would have been, which would have been the columns and niches between the columns. And when we get to the end ones there, you see, it's like my initial sort of intuition that's really pretty correct. Because when you get there and you have the end parts that have been completed, which they weren't when I started doing this, you're in a sound box. And if you do a chant in one of those things, even though it's not all complete, but if it were complete, you'd have a really resonant sound to it. And the columns themselves are called fasciculated. They're bundles of, symbolically, bundles of reeds. And so there are 17 on each of the columns, and at the end columns there are 19, and these are two very significant astronomical numbers referring to specific long-term cycles of the moon. And I mean, to do 17s, to cut 2/3 of a column into 17 and 2/3 of a column into 19 is not casually undertaken. I mean, it's easy enough to do into 4 or 6 or 12 or something with it. You do that with a crude compass.
But to do it into 17 has to have some kind of a rationale behind it, and it has something to do with music. Supposedly the columns represent, or the niches represent the various states of Egypt. They may or may not have had a statue in between each of them, but it's pretty powerful. And the suggestion is it's almost grotto-free.
They'll be gone in a minute.
They'll be gone in a minute. But the suggestion is to go down in silence, quietly, ceremonially, and at the end, stop, and we'll do they'll let us a little bit of a chant, or I will, in one of those sounding boxes, and you'll see what it must have been like when it was in full operation.
Entonces, pero están viendo la forma como la construcción dentro de las casas, en el pueblo abajo, parecía un poquito como una forma rústica, porque ellos cuando utilizaron la naturaleza, tallando, por ejemplo, el techo, la forma de los...
Tell him he doesn't know what he's talking about, Carlos.
Well, he speaks very good Spanish.
I don't know if it's worth mentioning that 17 will be a major third.
It is worth mentioning.
19 is the perfect fit.
Oh, is it? Really? How's that? Hey, tell everyone to stop.
Oh, John wants everyone to stop. Well, 8 is down. Like they were ready.
Right.
Yeah. So 8 is 1, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 6, 7, 15. 1, 16, 17 is 3. 18,
Okay.
19, another 5.
No, that's very worth it, because I think this whole thing had a musical significance. Here, you hear me talking in here now? And imagine if all of the whole rest of it were restored. So the ceiling over there, the inside is where you're all standing, is open to the sky. The other side is all roofed in. And it becomes, as I said, my original sense of being in the three-dimensional guitar stem is not far off. But you can hear, even this little bit that I'm here, if I do a I mean, that resonates, and if they're coming through here playing all kinds of music as part of the opening of the procession or the rites and ceremonies that are going on inside, that's going to have some real power. So, you know, last word has by no means been said about the significance of this. That's interesting, Kyle. I will never remember it, but if you write it down and send it to me, I would like to have that, because that adds to the general overriding musical significance. We'll see more of it as we go through here. This whole complex has something very, very important to do with music.
Collection students, did you feel that? Collection students?
What?
Is it charola? What? No, I'm going to shade.
You want the pie necklace?
Maybe show us.
Não, os caras querem dinheiro pra tudo. Agora.
I'd be interested to take a trip here with like 3 horn players.
Yeah.
Like a bass horn, a mid horn, and like a trombone, tuba, and trumpet.
Yeah.
And go to different places and establish what note resonates the best in each individual place.
Very interesting.
Figure out whatever note is the actual resonant tonic, and then play the harmonies with it
Yeah.
in each place and see how that.
You'd have to be careful about choosing the places that were complete and not messed about with.
Bring tons of bakshish. Bring a lot of bakshish.
No, that's the sort of thing that if you get a stage or two from where we are now, somebody understanding that this is worth studying and that it brings grackles to Egypt, it starts becoming feasible. What's not been feasible for the last 35 years suddenly gets easy, or relatively. So this is a good idea. Anyway, here, more or less a little bit in the shade, this court is called the Hebsed Court. Hebsed means Festival of the Tail, and the academics acknowledge that they don't know why it's called that, but I'm pretty sure I know why it's called that. Originally, this is all covered with white limestone, the flooring. It's not sand, and it's a place where a ritual gets carried out called the Jubilee Festival, where every 30 years the reigning king, if he's managing to be reigning over there for 30 years, undergoes a series of mostly physical trials, and the idea is that it's to determine whether he's fit to keep on reigning. Apparently in Africa, but I don't know if this has anything to do with Egypt, they use it as a rationale. If he's not fit to keep on reigning, he's ritually put to death. They do this in certain African tribes. Whether or not that has anything to do with Egypt ever or earlier, I don't know. But this is a kind of a standard in academia that whenever they can find any excuse to denigrate the ceremonies or the not what I'm looking for, the real manifestations of the ancient Egyptians, if they have 3 different possible alternatives, they will always choose the stupidest one, or the one that makes them look the stupidest. This is a given. So in this case, it may not be that at all, according to Schwaller. In fact, it's a testament, it's a test, it's a physical test, but its underlying significance is to test the initiatic state of the pharaoh himself, in which case he keeps on reigning. And what he has to do, this is all limestone, is that stripped naked, he has to run this, see out there, there's a little thing, it looks like, you can't tell from here, but it looks like a B, the letter B made out of stone. He's supposed to go around the letter B, he's supposed to run around the perimeter of the walls of the whole place twice, as a physical test, and that's no physical test. I mean, I could do that at 84. So the Pharaoh reigned for 30 years, and he took over the throne when he was 20. I mean, who couldn't do that? Anyway, probably because he's been taking care of all of his 60 wives all that time, so he didn't have much energy left. Anyway, he does that, and then there are a couple of other trials, and then he goes inside a festival hall there where we'll go, where there's some very interesting acoustical qualities to it. But meanwhile, in terms of Festival of the Tail, you've probably noticed many of the costumes of the pharaoh, he's wearing a bull's tail coming down from his ceremonial dress. On the walls there, you look over there, see the rearing cobras,
at the top of the frieze, and of course we've seen a jillion times the pharaoh with the rearing cobra at his third eye. So what this is I mean, very familiar from Hindu practice. The Kundalini rises from the tail and rises up the backbone and explodes in enlightenment in the third eye. So the festival of the tail seen that way makes perfect sense, and the evidence is all there for everyone to see. Pharaoh has a bull's tail, diadem is
Third eye.
is the third eye, and I mean even an Egyptologist should be able to figure that out, but they haven't yet. So you got it from me. Other than that, anything else, Carla? What are you talking about?
Did we say about the pyramid itself?
About the pyramid itself? No, not yet. So you see them when you get close to it. As I said, this is some of the sloppiest repair work I've ever seen.
It's a crime.
But the latest external face to it is not looking so bad.
Yeah.
It's the inner stuff. So it may be that a second application of casing stones. I don't see why they're doing it at all. It's not in any serious danger of falling
money
down.
on the side.
Who knows? Anyway, there's some really serious, interesting stuff going on up there. Some of it we will not be able to enter because they've got it fenced off. But let's wander.
Yalla?
Let's wander up there. Yes.
Let's go to the second.
The festival.
Yeah.
All that.
Kaiwa?
Hold on a sec, Dave. Okay, everyone, listen up. This is a John discovery. This is called the, what's it called, Sohaila? The
Festival Hall.
Festival Hall. And these shrines are mostly reconstructed, and I'm not sure how many there were to begin with, but it's not the gnomes of Egypt. It's some regular number. It might be 10 for Horus. I'm not sure. Anyway, you see, when you go through, none of them are complete. But the originals, I think that one is probably its original height. So they would have been sort of high like that, and they're like a little labyrinth, and with strange organic features, gates that don't open are part of them, and they take you around and around and around into those little niches. Each one has a little niche, and this is a John discovery. In those little niches, and if there's no grockles around, and you listen, you stick your head in there, and it's like holding a big, huge conch shell to your ear. You can, if you stay reasonably long, and there's no outside sound. Usually, you'll hear the pumps, the water pumps down in the valley, or buses or whatever, or the wind. But if it's really quiet, if you can hear your heart beating, there's a resonance to it that has to be deliberate. And the John theory is that the passageway in, which goes around in circles, is not in circles, but it winds its way in, is meant to recreate the channels of your ear, without which you wouldn't get clear sound. I can't prove that, but when you get inside there, it seems hard to imagine that resonance isn't part of the plan, and that the way to achieve that resonance is to recreate in stone form the physical attributes of the ear. So go in and turn and take a little bit of
Put your
time
head
to
in the
do.
niche.
Yeah, put your head in the niche.
Spot in with
Yeah.
your ear in. You can even try to record. If you, Carlos, put the speaker in to see.
Okay, I'll try.
But outside people will be totally silent, please. Totally. We are here silent after that sniff.
Spanish friend, and just tell her to reach Robert de Lubitsch.
I told her to watch your podcast
Oh,
in
right.
Joe Rogan.
Which one? Which?
The latest one.
Which one? The Magical Egypt?
No, the podcast of Joe Rogan, the show.
Oh, Joe Rogan, yeah, right.
I told her to watch The Mystery of the Sphinx.
Yes,
I told her to watch the videos.
right,
And she told me she'll do them.
right.
And she'll let me know when she has comments.
She what? She has?
When she will have comments.
Oh, okay.
But as she releases videos at least twice a week.
Uh-huh,
And the more I see her stuff,
yeah,
I can see that it's going to be really hard to reach her.
yes. Some of them are.
Because it's what she gets in university, and that's it. She only believes in what she can
Well,
see and touch.
Listen, if you,
But I'll try.
well, you try, and then if it doesn't work, you give up. You don't waste time.
Oh yeah. But as you said, I mean, they study so much that we can get at least half the work from them.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, if you have your wits about you, I mean, by the time you get to the 5th grade, you distrust school. What?
Behind the bars.
What?
We would be here.
Yeah, I know. See, Sahila? See if you can ask somebody what they're doing there, what they're pumping out. They've got those ventilating pumps going. And you know what? You should tell her.
Yeah.
You tell her to what? Even more to the point, because you don't even have to understand anything. Is what's the mystery of the Sphinx, the Charlton Heston one.
Yep. At least that. And see
At least that. And
Yeah.
see what you get.
Okay. I will insist.
Huh?
He said, okay, come for picture. I don't know.
Oh, does
I
he?
can-
Okay. Well, let's go.
Let's go.
Yeah. You get through here.
From,
Wait.
from that opening then.
No, we can go right through here. Wait.
How?
This dude's saying no over here, though.
Did he say no?
Yeah.
It's not on
Who says no? Who says?
Can I go up on the scaffolding for a picture? Can I climb up for a picture?
No, but Dane can. He can climb up there for the
No, I
top.
can climb that. That's easy.
He can.
But
He
you're
can.
going up here, you can take a picture.
He can do the scaffolding
Wait, can you ask
record.
if I can go up on the scaffolding?
You would say no, and I don't want you to do that. It's very dangerous. ايوه لقيته ايه بتعملوا ايه؟
هنا احنا شغالين ترميم برضه في
ايوه
ترميم
بس تحت عاملين
تحت
ايه؟
في ترميم في المستوى الخارجي
جان.
What?
بعد
They are
حجرة الدفن
making some restriction in the bottom.
دي مروحة تهوية عشان في الشغل
Because there is ventilation here for
Right.
that below the tomb.
Yeah. How deep?
الممرات اللي تحت
They're cleaning up the corridors that have been full of
Debris? Rubble? Yeah.
بننظف الممرات اللي تحت عشان الجبل خاص اللي هي بعد حجرة الدفن في الثالث المستوى الثالث المستوى الخامس فيه الانهيارات
There are 5 levels below.
I was going to ask how many levels. Yeah, this is.
خمسة آخر حاجة
As
خمسة.
above, so below.
And you see.
John.
What?
الممرات
Yeah,
اللي تحت
it's a maze. 7
Right.
kilometers of corridors maze.
Right. And this
That's why
is
it's closed.
right. And ask him about the tomb.
ازيك يا باشا
ازيك عامل ايه؟
عامل ايه يا نفسيات
الله
الحمد
يخليك.
لله بخير
الله يخليك.
خليهم ياخدوا
Ask him about there's a tomb,
بتسأل على حاجة
Sila.
نعم.
I was here once.
منين فين
عايز يطلع فوق.
لا
ممنوع.
I was here once in the middle of the revolution itself, and there was
You
an
were invited.
architect. There was an architect working here. What was
What's
his
his
name? I forget.
Yusuf?
No, it's like a name of
You wrote it
typical name
down.
like Labib or something.
في هنا مرمم اسمه لبيب.
wasn't Labib, it was something like that.
مين
Like
كان
Emir or
مشهور؟
something.
أمير؟
I'm not sure, something like that.
في مرمم.
An old guy,
في الأستاذ أشرف والأستاذ مصطفى.
أشرف مصطفى.
maybe. He's an old a guy about my age.
حسن فهمي.
Maybe,
حسن فهمي.
maybe,
The
maybe.
big one.
No, maybe him.
Yeah, what
He's
about-
my age. Well, because
هو في سن هو الدكتور حسن فهمي.
حسن فهمي.
دكتور حسن
yeah,
You
maybe.
tried to.
I tried to get in touch with him
Yeah,
because
he's a
he was telling me that they uncovered deep down I thought it was a single block of stone, but a sarcophagus that weighed 170 tons.
انتوا وصلتوا للتابوت اللي
That
تحت.
was the sarcophagus to a queen.
ثلاث توابيت تحت.
He said there are 3 sarcophaguses
Right,
down.
deep down.
تحت خالص.
في اثنين في المستوى الخامس بتاع
2 in the 5th level.
ده من نوع
Yeah. See, this is
Alabaster, John.
alabaster.
Ah,
There's stuff to come out of here. And you see where we're looking?
John,
What?
the kids are alabaster and Zoser is red granite.
Wow, but there was, according to the architect, one of this giant sarcophagus was to a queen.
في واحد للملكة؟
لا للملك
Zoser. It's
Okay.
unlikely to do
Well, that's what he
this
said.
many in one pyramid.
That's what he said. Now, we're not making this up. Anyway,
Yeah, but you see here, John will tell you in a bit, look at the blocks in the outside, that's the original. Why? And the core here is still original. But then there are some adds.
yeah, this pyramid was definitely built, unlike the others, deliberately in stages of somebody changing his mind, presumably Imhotep, starting out as a normal mastaba and then becoming a square mastaba and then becoming a 4-step pyramid, because you can see the interior casing blocks, and then becoming a 6-stage pyramid. And you see the problem with, whereas on the Great Pyramid and the other pyramids, each block rests on its own level platform, so there's no vertical thrust other than straight down. Here, on a batter, the thrust is going down like this, so any movement of the earth or any weak blocks at some point or another are going to crumble, and they're going to take a lot of stuff down with them. So this is a very inferior way of putting up a pyramid, and they have the models in front of them all along. Anyway, you see down here where this huge pit is, and you see down below there, you see that's all bedrock, right? Or anyway, impacted Nile silt, and that's courses of rough stone. Those courses of rough stone go right down here, right through to, following me, and exactly on an east-west line, and right, we will go there. How is it? Oh, over there. It goes over there. Up, we go up a little bit, and we come to a deep shaft in the stone, and you can see that the sides of the shaft are very deeply water weathered. And this is one of the most important pieces of evidence that we have for the whole water weathering hypothesis. So this is the thing that we want to really get into in depth when we get our geo panel together. And we now have at our disposal a friend of mine. I don't think you were on the trip with him, Carlos. Clay Roop, the baseball player, was he in the
Yeah.
Clay.
Yeah.
He's buying, our 10 acres that we
Yeah,
have.
so he told me.
And he's a very adventurous guy, and he bought himself a drone. So we now own a drone to go down into the thing and take pictures without us necessarily having to go down the steep ladder that they've got there. Even if we could get permission, well, we would, of course, we'd go in to look. So anyway, that's as much as we need to go to get into here, and we'll go up to a John discovery. So they're named West's Wells. There are 2 of them, and actually, once we get up there, because I was once here, there was an old Egyptologist, now gone, but who lived to be around 100, and he started excavations here. It wasn't the first excavations in 1925, and it was he who excavated. His name was Jean-Philippe Lauer. He who did a lot of the beginning restoration work and the excavating here. And up there, when you go see West Wells, you'll see, when you look in, it's deeply weathered. And at one point, he was leading not leading tours the way I do, all day long, but taking people around. And I saw him there, and I said in my not very great French, if he had excavated this well, and he said yes, he had. And then I said, did you ever notice the weathering of it? And he said, c'est l'érosion, c'est rien. It's nothing, it's weathering. And then he said, il y a un autre. And he pointed down, and sure enough, on the other side of the colonnade, where we were walking on a direct north-south line, there's another such weathered, deeply weathered well. So this is actually critical, because apart from Sphinx weathering and all the other things we've looked at, it's up to them to explain how in an arid climate, whether it's filled up with sand or not filled up with sand, how you get a deeply weathered wall of a deep shaft. This is a major mystery. Jacques is fascinated by it, and we'll see how it all falls out. Unfortunately, you can't get much photographically because you can't get close enough. It's sort of perilous to reach over the edge. If you had a stick, a long stick with a camera on it, you could probably get something. Dangling down, you could probably get something. We've tried, but we get something enough to show in a slide when I do a lecture to get the idea for what we do. Oh,
Mr. Ayman, the inspector, he's saying hello because we are request. So he opened for the Sardab. We can go and see. الشغل تحت
ماشيين حضرتك؟
الشغل تحت شكله امبرسيف بس اللي فوق مش كله.
لما تطلعوا وتشوفوا المنظر كافي.
لما تطلعوا الأول؟
سنوات.
Everyone, listen up. You see that over there is impacted not silt or sand, and on this side it's also impacted silt or sand, and that is construction, and that is construction. They don't seem to have noticed that, but where is that leading? Leading into the deep shaft, the well that I'll be showing you shortly. They ought to be. They have noticed that this is a big-time anomaly, and this goes deep down. And when they get to the bottom of it, if they do, some bright spark cannot be Zoser and the Third Dynasty, that it has to come from earlier, part of an older construction. So let us go to the center. Come around this way.
ناجي
statue.
It was hard.
Arabic?
It was hard to hear, John, when you were speaking next to the machine.
Oh, right.
You
Well,
can say that again or something.
I will, actually. Maybe when we get up to West Swells.
Okay, because we couldn't get you there.
Okay, everybody, this is how it was found. This is original, or maybe it's reconstructed. Inside, looking out through the two holes, is the statue of Zoser himself. Actually, it's a replica. The original is in the Cairo Museum. But he's seated and he's looking out to his destiny, actually, to the circumpolar stars. And they make a big fuss about this. And they opened it up for us to see this, which doesn't interest me that much. Much more interesting is the well. I'll explain. Carla said you couldn't really hear me when I was talking there, so I'll sort of repeat it when we get up to the actual West Well. But go look and see Zoser himself. Go ahead, take turns, and look at Zoser, looking up at the circumpolar stars, which is his destiny, and in fact all of our destinies. How he's supposed to see through both openings at the same time, I don't know. He's got a wide angle of vision, right? So this reconstruction here is not that terrible looking. That's not bad.
Oh, maybe for different times, John?
What?
Yeah, the holes are there for different times of day or month or year.
Maybe. That could be. Or the stars moved over the course of thousands of years. Yeah, seriously.
Re-drilled it, yeah.
أنا ممكن أديك التليفون. 5 شارع الخطيب ده المساحة.
The guy you... Yeah, he's the manager.
For 2 years.
And we were here during the revolution.
Yes.
You remember me?
هو هيعرفنا احنا هنا كنا لوحدنا وقعد يتكلم معانا 01
I mean, I know, what are you guys doing?
John, okay, you can lead the way to our stuff and I'm going to get take care of the client. Then we can take the shortcut to the bus from...
Yes.
سلام يا دكتور. Ventilate where they're working. Something like that. Yeah, that's the West Swell.
Be careful, doctor. Be careful.
No.
مرحبا دكتور.
أيوة.
مش عاوزين كتابة دكتور ولا حاجة؟
I tell them. What can I do? I've seen that 10 times. That stuff does some good. Your power squad.
Oh, yes. I don't do it probably before we do it.
let's see, up here is probably better. Up this way. Yeah, this is better.
About 20 meters straight?
What? You all here? Yeah. Okay, if you get where I am now, I mean, you can only pretty much do it one at a time. It's pretty slippery. You see that there's a neatly dry walling on that side of the well, which I believe is what we have on the other side there. So in other words, there's a passageway between this and that. There's an indication that it is, and on either side, when we're over there, you see that it's just impacted, you know, that it's impacted sand, and then in between it's filled in with blocks of stone. And when you come here, you stand where I am, and you see that that goes down 20 feet or so, and then it hits bedrock, and then cut into the bedrock is this deep, squared off shaft with its sides very, very deeply weathered. And the same in the other wells, corresponding well on a north-south line on the other side of the colonnade. So this is serious, because when we're talking about the Sahila there, Ahmed Fahmi or something was the name of the chief architect who was working here when I was here during the revolution, and we got chatting. He was working on the things there, and we got talking. Sahila wasn't with us. One of the other guides, Emil, was with us, and we got talking to the architect. And I at a certain point, I asked him, because it was clear I was the leader of the group, if he was familiar with the theory of the water weathering of the Sphinx. And I said, and he said, yes, but I don't believe it. And I said, oh, okay, well then you come with me, and let me show you something, and you explain it to me. And so I came over here to the well, and he looked in, and he got very silent, and I said, okay, now, if this is not, how did this get weathered from Zosa's time to now, when it's been covered up with sand most of that time, and there's no water around to have done that, and that is water weathering, according to my geologist colleagues. What do you say? And I was hoping that he'd take the ball and run with it, but he didn't. I wrote him, emailed him a few times. He didn't want to know. You know, he was about my age, and why stir the pot up? If you get honey, there's still honey in the pot. I don't know. But anyway, this is a big deal, because when if we get the chance to present this again, we get the next chance to do the next stage of work, and we haven't, because we have to get down in there
and it's now, who knows how much sand has covered up the original excavation. I don't even know how deep it's supposed to go. It probably goes about, my guess is about 25, 30 meters as it is. It probably goes deeper than that. Really, we have to get into it, Jacques and myself and maybe a couple of the other geologists, to really study it and be able to present it to another GSA meeting. But we're not far off, because there are a number of clinchers we've been looking at as we've been going along, and this is a major clincher. They have to be able to explain how this gets into this condition, especially when there are other shaft tombs around here that look as though they've been cut the day before yesterday. So go ahead, take it then, and really be careful. This is pretty sturdy in here. So, what?
That's an indicator.
No, that one came loose.
Yeah.
How sturdy they are.
Yeah, well, down below, this is known as the Tomb of the Unknown Grockle. See if you can stick that thing over far enough.
Will they let us climb down in there?
No,
One of us?
absolutely they will not. If you could sneak down in there, I'd have done it long ago.
Have you ever thought of like throwing something that would make a sound? You'd at least know how.
Well, it's sand on the bottom, so it's not going to do anything. But if Clay has his drone, we can get here and put the drone down it. We can get some pretty interesting documentation that might lead to getting more stuff.
What if you dropped your phone down?
Well, that's what I was sort of thinking of. If you put like the selfie stick, if you had another extension to the selfie stick, but you won't get anything clear enough and definitive enough, I don't think.
No, but if you were like to drop your phone and be like, oh shit, I dropped my phone.
Oh, well, I don't know.
Oh,
Don't throw it in. No, come on, Dave. No. Don't throw it down.
A video camera on a string.
What? Yeah, somehow. But of course, if you do that, then,
Why won't they reopen the dig?
Why won't they what?
Reopen the dig?
Which dig? Well, I mean, they haven't, it hasn't occurred to them. I mean, they're not listening to anything that we say until or unless they're obliged to. That's how these things go, and you don't get, no point getting frustrated about it. Because it's unmistakable when you look in there. Look at those. I mean,
How do you not get frustrated at it?
what? Because I don't allow myself to, because then they win. He who presses your buttons, for whatever reason whatsoever, is your master. Very simple. Esoteric lesson 101. But it's quite clear that that's deeply, deeply weathered, and nothing is possibly calculated for it since dynastic times. And really,
Nothing
I
recent.
mean, when I talk about even old, because it doesn't look as though, it wouldn't be subject to precipitation-induced weathering like the Sphinx, which is pretty explainable. The water rushes down the plateau and over the edge, and the Sphinx itself is less weathered, but it's still water coming from above over the body of the Sphinx. And here you have a hole. Is it going to, if it were completely full of water, it would get there would be some weathering, because the water would react with minerals in the surface of the stone, and you get some kind of weathering. But would you get that kind of weathering? And if you did, would it be hundreds of thousands of years? I don't know. It's
John,
I can't answer that.
Sorry, where do you see the weathering here precisely?
Well, right from below. You see, look below, get up to it, and you see the big.
Oh, the big stones.
The big stones, but below the big stones, you see very regular, very, very severe.
Oh, I see it.
You see?
I see it, yeah.
It's a lot.
I get a picture here. I'm gonna get a picture.